I think if I lived in a city, then I would write different music that was a little more edgy and freaky because I would be reflecting my surroundings. Whereas like here, I can just kind of like really reach who I am in my heart of hearts.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Foundation in support of the Adirondack Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
One nice thing, a side effect maybe, that comes from interviewing hundreds, thousands of people over the years is that you get to know some good people, interesting people, doing interesting things. And you hope for good things for them, even if you never run into them again. I was grateful to spend some time with Louisa Stancioff almost 3 years ago. The singer-songwriter and St. Lawrence University grad had recently returned to Maine at that point, and the town where she grew up, and released a pandemic-era self-produced EP that got a surprising amount of attention. And so it was great to learn not long after that Stancioff landed a recording contract and released a much more fully realized album this year. Just this month, she released a new single, and she's about to head out on a concert tour with two other acclaimed songwriters. It'll include a stop in Burlington for a unique show at Foam Brewers in a couple of weeks. All this is to say that I am thrilled to chat with Louisa Stancioff again for an update on everything going on. So nice to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Mitch. I'm psyched to be here.
All right, so the last time we talked, we were really not long after COVID. We were kind of just sort of coming out of it, and you had just released an album or an EP that, if I remember this right, you had recorded on like a cassette deck.
Yeah, I recorded on a 4-track cassette recorder, and I just did it all by myself in my bedroom at the time.
Yeah, it was very DIY. So pick up the story from there. A lot has happened since then.
Yeah, so I released that, I think, just kind of spontaneously. I was like, it's time to just put some music on the internet. I think it was because Ellie Buckland asked me to go on a little tour with her, and I was like, it'd be cool to be able to sell a couple CDs while I'm on that little tour and like kind of have a souvenir for people to take home.
Hate to have the
So I
empty
released
merch table.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to have an empty merch table. That's super lame. Um, so I did that. And then when I was on that tour, I got connected to Sam Cassier, who's a producer in Boston, but has a studio in Maine, like right outside of, like an hour outside of Portland, down a long dirt road called Great North Sound Society. And I had had my eye on his work for a while because he had recorded the Lula Wiles and Lake Street Dive. He plays with Josh Ritter. He's just really talented. And so when I got connected to him, we talked on the phone a little bit. He was at my Club Passim show and we didn't actually meet, but someone was like, Sam Cassier liked your set. And I was like, what? And I had mentioned on stage that I was looking to record these songs because I still thought of that EP that I released as like a demo. Like I just put it on Bandcamp and more people heard it than I was expecting, but I still thought of it as like one version of the songs, but I had a very different version in mind for all of them. So I talked to Sam about that. I sent him some of the songs. I sent him some other voice memos that weren't on that little EP. And he was really psyched. He was really willing to strike a deal with me and like figure something out to make it all happen. And he took me under his wing and I met him at his studio and we made these songs come to life together. And then after that, I was so psyched about the album. I didn't want to just release it on my own because you know how that can go. It's just kind of no one's going to really hear it. Everyone's putting out music every second of the day on Spotify and Apple Music, and it's like just kind of floats into the world and you never hear it again. So I really wanted to find a label, so I emailed all these labels. I was just emailing all over the place. I was substitute teaching at the time, so I had a lot of time at the high school. Whenever I'd substitute teach there, I'd be like, oh wow, I'm just gonna spend all my time emailing labels. And I heard back from a couple, but the only one that really was a hit was Yep Roc. And they were really psyched. I talked to them the same day that I emailed them. They were like, do you want to talk on the phone? Like, we love this album. And it was like, just your classic little dreamy situation. It's really uncommon, I guess, for that to happen, but I didn't know that at the time. I was like, yeah, great. They're emailing me back. Sweet. Like, finally.
Well, and Yep Roc is like the perfect label for you.
Yeah, it's really, really sweet. I think it's kind of totally my vibe. And they ended up coming up with the idea to record a few more songs around the album to release before and after. So I had to do that. And then finally they came up with a release date. Took forever. But yeah, I just ended up releasing it in 2024, like in April. Yeah, it's just been fun since then. Yeah.
A lot more stuff goes into releasing an album when you do it that way than versus like just sending it off to Spotify or Apple Music, which
Yeah.
has to be both good and bad or good and challenging.
It was definitely the most challenging thing that I've ever experienced in my whole life. And the challenging part about it was having patience, just waiting and knowing that it was coming, but had to wait. And that was just really hard on my heart, on my fragile heart. And I just really wanted it to be out in the world. I feel like I've changed a lot since I wrote all those songs, and I feel like I'm a different person now. I have a lot of new music that I would prefer to be releasing now. But that's just how it goes as an artist these days. Things just take a lot of time. Usually no one gets to release an album until like at least a year after they recorded it, which like that means you probably wrote the songs a year before that. And this is more like 4 years.
That's interesting though, because like yeah, this album is full of songs about that it's full of heartache and heartbreak and obviously stuff had to be going on in your life that inspired those. But to hear you tell it that stuff is in the past now.
Yeah, definitely. It feels really nostalgic to listen to this album. I feel like I'm listening to someone else, like a little version of a little Louisa, growing up in her early to mid 20s, wondering how to navigate the world. And now I'm like, I'm old and weathered.
Draining long when I sang you a song, faded roses to brown, sugar sap, water elm, burning time on the front porch, printing lavender and telephone wires. I wonder when you'll come into the car.
But I'd still write songs about heartbreak, but I feel like slightly removed. Like it's just still me like processing things. And it's like I go back through my journals. I have like some pretty epic journals, and I like to read about various times I've had and turn them into songs, even if they aren't always like completely my stories. Like it'll be like maybe a friend, and like then I turn it into some sort of story song. It's really fun to kind of experiment with that. Whereas like in the past when I wrote songs, it felt like I was kind of puking up part of my soul or something. Now I'm a little more guarded with it, but I think it's producing a lot better of songs in a way. I'm really excited about the newer stuff.
Well, so when you go on stage today and you play music from this album, is it like visiting your journal or looking through a photo album or something or an out of body experience or
Yeah, a little bit of all of those. I like that. Yeah, I think it's sort of venturing back into an old self, a different time. Especially when I play the song Seams.
Said I want a thunderstorm. Now I can see it, and I believe that I am gone. Trade the ocean emotions turn the tide. Grass in my pillow, I left a part of me behind. On the other coast, I opened up my seams. You crawled in like a dream.
I played a solo show recently at this opera house in Camden, Maine, and it was so magical. Something about it just felt really cool. Haven't played solo in a long time, and I started out with that song, and I never play that song. I usually am with a full band. We're playing, I don't know, just shows where that song doesn't really make sense to put on the set list, and I made my guitar all like flirby and reverby, and started out with just picking it for a while and like hearing it in this cavernous space and being like, okay, I'm gonna go back to that time when I was driving across the country from LA to Maine during the pandemic and feeling heartbroken and lovesick and excited and scared, and I loved getting back into that. And a lot of people after who were commenting about the show, they were like, that was a really cool way to start out the show. Just like it put me in a different world. And I was like, that's because I was in a different world too.
It's like a Louisa Stancioff deep cut.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What's interesting, I think the thing that always strikes me about your music is that I feel like you are able to simultaneously write and sing in these dark places, but do it with this kind of ethereal, sometimes almost hopeful sound.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hope in it. I think it's just acknowledging that even though things aren't okay right now, there is hope that they could be better in the future. I I'm not like a super depressed person or anything, luckily. I think a lot of people are. But I'm lucky in that way that I do always have that like um deep down kind of, I see the darkness in the world, the sadness, and I feel that a lot. Like I was literally crying this morning about some random thing that I heard on the news. Like I just like that just happens to me daily, but I also like see that everything's going to be okay. I'm really lucky that I have like a really loving family in my life and friends all around me that will support me, and in turn that I can give that support back to people that need it at times. So yeah, and I'm also in Maine where things are really nice. So yeah, I'm not like living in a big scary city. I think if I lived in a city, then I would write different music that was a little more edgy and freaky because I would be reflecting my surroundings. Whereas like here I can just kind of like really reach who I am in my heart of hearts.
And again, forgive me if I'm projecting this onto you, but I think the last time we talked, you had not really been back in Maine for all that long after these stints in various places, including, of course, the North Country here. Do you feel like the music that came out of you then was almost a transition to the person that you are now?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. I think at that time when we were talking, I was even still considering leaving Maine. I was thinking about moving back down to North Carolina or going back out to California, just mainly because of music. I was feeling like I wasn't going to be able to find a group of people to play with here or like be inspired by. But then I started playing with this band. With these two brothers, and we set up a few different tours, and like we actually ended up opening for a couple awesome bands like Darling Side and Pokey Lafarge, and that all just happened because I lived in Maine actually. And I don't think that things like that would have happened if I lived in North Carolina or Asheville, or I mean California. So like I think there were a lot of different reasons I stayed in Maine, and it's really quite pleasant. It's it's really hard to get out of here when I need to go on a tour. Like I'm flying to Portland, Oregon today, and it's gonna be such a nightmare. It's always a nightmare to try to fly because you don't want to fly from Portland because it's too expensive. So you have to go to Boston, but you have to figure out how to get there. And it's always absolutely insane, especially coming back because it's always a red eye. And so
Yeah.
then you're like stuck in Boston at like 3 a.m. and you're like, how do I get home? So yeah, no, there's a lot of things that are wrong with living here, but for the most part, there's just a lot of the more I think about whenever I have doubts about being in Maine, I realize that everyone has doubts about everywhere whenever they live somewhere. Like there's good things and bad things, and especially when I'm here in the summer, I'm like, whoa, the good things way outweigh the bad things. And I need to just like live with that. And who knows, maybe I'll, venture away at some point. But I definitely always see myself being back here. It's just deeply ingrained in my soul. Like I kind of have to I have to end up in Maine. It's just how it works.
We're having this conversation a few days after you released a single, which I gather is part of what you were talking about before, the idea that there would be some singles, some tracks that came out before and after the album. It's called Heist, and it feels a little less heartbreak and maybe a little more, I don't know, in your face than some of the tracks on the album.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote this in a very different mindset. I was on a tour out west a few years ago with my old band, Giotto, and we were touring with Isaac Opatz, who's a songwriter from Missoula, Montana. And we were in two separate cars. We were in Isaac's truck and my little car, my little blue Ford Focus. And we were in Arizona in the desert, and I think I had my car that day, and they were in their truck, and I was just driving, like singing this song, like kind of pretending I was on the run or something. It was just like this, your brain goes to weird places. I wasn't listening to music. I didn't have any way to listen to music in my car at that time, really. And but yeah, I just started singing this song about a heist, like I'm gonna your hands up, and I really liked it. Like I was like, what is this silly world I'm making up?
If the world could be yours, honey, what would you do? She said I could say, but I'd have to kill you. They crossed both their hearts, hope to die. I wanna be the monster of all, catching the kings just to watch them fall. I can see it now, hotter than a bullet. Put your hands up. I'm gonna take all you got.
And then it kind of ended up being more about the general idea of like trying to gain control. Like it turned into like a metaphor for like feeling kind of out of control in society. And I think my base was Asheville, North Carolina at that time, actually. And it did feel quite chaotic there all the time. Like I was just kind of like floating in this world and really having such a great time. But I was like, this is not sustainable. Um, so I think Heist was kind of a way to think about that. Like I was just like trying to find my way and feel in control. And then, whenever you really try to do anything like that, I feel like that's when you like lose your footing the most. So then that's where that song ended up.
I've got a baby clock trigger that I'm not afraid to pull. It's a sunset gamble, how the year dies through. I was born for this living. Now I'm high.
And if you watch the music video, there's a few plot twists going on in that, and it's pretty silly and makes no sense, but it was very fun to make.
And I am ashamed to say I've not yet seen the music video, so that'll be what
Oh
I do
my
after this.
gosh, Mitch, you can't miss it. It's great. I
I
made it a couple weeks ago, actually, just right before the release. the label was like, "Wait, you don't have a video asset?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Well, we need something, so make it." And I was like, "What's the budget?" And they're like, "Nothing." And I was like, "Cool, okay, I'll just make something with my friend." And then my cousin Matt happened to be visiting, and he had his fancy camera with him. He's who I've made all my vi music videos with. So it's just a coincidence that he happened to be around. And I had a bucket of flowers from my friend's party, my old truck, some ski masks, and I was like, "Well, I originally wanted to like hold up a bank, but like I don't have a bank to like act this out, and I'm not gonna like ask a bank to like let me film in there. That seems weird." So then we just like made up this whole story that the same day that we filmed it, we were like as we were doing it, we were like, "Oh, and you'll steal the jewelry, and then you'll kill him, and then we'll kill each other, and then like you fall in the water." Yeah, so it ended up being very fun, and I edited it all the next morning and turned it into the label, and they were like, "What the heck? This is amazing!" And I was like, "What can I say?"
So before I let you go here, I've been looking over your shoulder at the guitar on the wall. Is that just your guitar, or is that a really cool guitar, or both? Or
I have a lot of guitars, and this one I got at a music store in Nashville called Fanny's, and it's just this old parlor guitar from the 20s,
wow,
and it's super cute. I love it. Has these hand painted roses on it. And that's really what drew me to it. It's like they had no history of it. Like they didn't know where it came from. But they were like, yeah, these are hand painted from like the 1920s. I was like, this is a piece of art. This is insane. And it was not expensive, so I had to buy it.
well, and of course I couldn't see the roses from like where it was hanging, and that is
Mhm.
amazing.
I know, I love it so
Wow.
much. It needs some work. It's kind of not in the best shape. I'm not taking good care of it, but I've written a few songs on it and it looks really pretty on my wall. So
Well, and it looks like one of those things you could take on one of those like PBS shows or HGTV shows where an antiques person appraises it and you find out that it was actually painted by this legendary, country musician from the 20s and it's worth
that would be pretty
$50,000. Yeah.
cool. I'm sure it's worth like $150 at this point.
Yeah, well. So before we wrap up, you are about to head out on tour, including a stop in Burlington. But this is not just any old stop in Burlington or any old concert tour. What's different about it?
So yeah, I'm going on tour with these two gals, Eliza Edens and Molly Pardon, and we did a similar thing last year where we played all each other's songs. So we share the stage, and I'll play lead guitar, Eliza will play lead guitar, Molly will play bass, whatever. We switch it up. Eliza plays bass, and Dave Kelly's playing drums with us, and we sing harmonies to each other's songs and lots of silly stage banter. And yeah, it was kind of an experiment last year. We just did 4 or 5 shows and we were like, we have to do this again. It was such a success and it's just super fun playing with them. They're two of the best songwriters I know. I love their voices so much and they're like the harmony singing is like it just comes so naturally. We can just go into we all choose the different parts perfectly and like don't even have to practice it. It's like really just such a breath of fresh air singing with them. It's wild. But I'm so excited to bring the act to Burlington. It's going to be such a cool show, and I hope that people can make it out.
Sounds super energizing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is energizing for me because I feel like when I'm performing by myself, it's fun, but it's a lot of pressure. It's just a totally different experience. Whereas like with these gals, it feels it's still pressure, but it's really exciting because they are also leaders of a band. They've always been a leader of their own band, so they like know how to do stage banter really well. They know how to like just lead a show really well. And so if one of us having maybe an off night, they can take the reins or vice versa. And we all just kind of we just all kind of do the same thing we just get it, I think. We all live in the same world as each other. And I didn't even know them very well before we did that tour last year. And now we're really good friends.
congratulations on all this. Best of luck on the tour. And let's talk again soon. Looking forward to whatever's next.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mitch.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Singer-songwriter Louisa Stancioff lives in Maine. The St. Lawrence University grad's latest album is called When We Were Looking. She'll play a show at Foam Brewing in Burlington on Wednesday, October 2nd, along with fellow songwriters Molly Pardon and Eliza Edens. You'll find a link to Louisa Stancioff's music and her new video at ncpr.org/northwards. And now I shall throw things over to Ethan Shanty to take us out.
Thanks, Mitch. Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke, with digital production by me, Ethan Shanty. Our theme music is by the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. The music that you're hearing right now is the song Gold by Louisa Stancioff, the first track on her new album, When We Were Looking. Find more conversations and a link to Louisa's website at ncpr.org/northwards. You can support this show and other NCPR programs by making a gift now at ncpr.org/give. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.
I know you said you're sorry.